Yes, indeed. It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. In venturing north, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words. The fire fades, and the lords go without thrones.
If you were one of the people disappointed in Dark Souls 2, then I am glad to tell you that the third installment is a return to form. Miyazaki is back on the team, and whilst his absence from the second game is noticeable, his return here is just as apparent. Dark Souls 3 drops you into a bleak world full of things trying to kill you, and once again it falls on your shoulders to murder everything in sight and attempt to restore order to the chaos. As with the titles in the series before it, Dark Souls 3 gives a feeling of tension and trepidation as you turn each corner. You never know what's waiting in the shadows, or what's behind the next door. It's an atmosphere very few other, if any, games have managed to create, and it's one of the things that makes the series unique. The difficulty has been ramped up once more, with enemies moving faster, hitting harder, and coming at you in more shapes and sizes than ever before. Death has become a learning process. The odds are never unfair, so as frustrating as it is to lose a nice stack of souls, you have only yourself to blame, and next time you go through the area, you're ready for the enemies that surprised you before. Dark Souls 3 not only allows growth for your character as you find new gear and level up, but allows progression for you as a player. However many times you die, each time you return, you get a little further, and after a while you become an unstoppable machine, killing enemies before they can surprise you. Miyazaki has brought back a few old faces with him. Fan favourites like Andre the Blacksmith and the Onion Knight of Katarina provide a comforting sense of familiarity amid the death and destruction. Even a slightly upgraded version of the Asylum Demon crops up at one point. This finally gives the impression that everything happening in the same world, something I was crying out for throughout Dark Souls 2. Everything there felt weirdly disjointed from the first game, as if it was taking place in an entirely separate universe.
You're in search of the Lords of Cinder, I trust. A toilsome journey, I'd wager. You'll require good arms. Let me smith you weapons.
This world building is something that the Souls series has managed to nail by now, especially with returning characters. The subtle story and deep lore behind every character, weapon and boss is something that's not easy to do, and the Souls series in general should be commended for it. The world of Dark Souls 3 is also richly drenched in hidden clues about seemingly meaningless things. Whilst it might not be the biggest world we've seen in the series, it definitely is the most intricately designed, with hidden pathways and secrets that could lead to new items, enemies, and even whole new areas. This is why it's worth taking your time to explore fully. It's possible to play Dark Souls 3 from start to finish, rarely straying from the beaten path, and have a good time doing it. The challenge, gameplay and progression system all make for a good game, regardless of how long you spend with it. But it's the small things, the things you find for yourself, the things that are hidden that turn a great game into an outstanding one. As with most things, Dark Souls 3 is better with friends, and thanks to the password matching system, brought over from Bloodborne, it's now easier than ever to play with actual friends, rather than the matchmaking be random. I did have a few problems summoning other players to my world. The message "unable to summon" became one I got used to very quickly. Plus, there were a few bugs during the actual online sessions. My companions would attack the spot where I'd just killed an enemy, leading me to think that there was some lag going on at the other end. It's unclear whether these problems are with my internet connection or with the servers at FromSoft, but if it's the latter, hopefully this will be patched soon. These issues didn't ruin my experience with the game, not by a long shot. It was just a little frustrating to see there be plenty of summon signs on the floor, but being unable to summon any of them. This is especially true for the boss fights. Hanging around outside a boss arena waiting for a summon sign that actually works can get tedious, and more often than not I just entered the fight alone. Strangely enough, I sometimes do better fighting a boss solo, but that's beside the point. Let's get on to these bosses. FromSoft are masters at creating boss fights. All of the Souls games have had some great bosses and these are no exception. Beautifully created, ferocious and often terrifying, the bosses challenge what you've learnt on your way through the area. Some of them did feel a little familiar. Vork moved and fought kind of like Sif, and the tactic for defeating him remains the same, but for the most part they were very imaginative. The tendency for enemies to change form mid-battle has also returned, making sure you don't get lazy or lose focus. A few things have changed between Dark Souls 2 and now. For starters, you now have a focus bar, which acts like your magic power, and for using special attacks with your weapons, a new little feature called a weapon art. You refill your focus meter with a second Estus flask, and you must choose which flask to put your Estus in. This adds a new layer of strategic depth. Do you focus most of your Estus on healing, or keep some back so that you can use more magic when you need it? It's just another little feature that makes you feel like you're surviving in this world, rather than trying to change or save it.
When the link of fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old lords of Cinder from their graves.
I'm just going to come out and say it. Dark Souls 3 is a fantastic game. Hell, Dark Souls 2 was fantastic, even if it is considered the disappointment of the series. That says a lot about the series as a whole, if you ask me. Any excuse to jump back in and experience new content from this series is one that I would jump at, and once again, FromSoft knocks it out of the park. A few technical errors with the online side of things hold this game back from being the masterpiece it could easily have been, but this is still some of the best content the Souls series has to offer. You might want to invest in some backup controllers though.